Heyo, you're listening to Edge Coach Quip, featuring our very own Edge coaches and community, dropping knowledge nuggets to fuel your day.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Coach Quip. I'm Coach Robyn.
I'm Coach Chris.
And we are at episode 147. Thanks for joining us. Today we're talking about secrets of elite athletes and really how you can apply them to your own training and racing.
You know, in sports, the gap between the pros and our everyday recreational runners is pretty big.
I mean, as it should be. They're pros.
Yes, for a variety of reasons, right? But what we know about being an elite athlete is that it's not just about raw talent. There are so many other things that go into being a professional. And part of it is the approach to training, the mindset, the nutrition and recovery. And so in this episode, we're going to dive into some of those things that make elite athletes elite, and talk about how that's different from recreational athletes, and then really pick out the pieces that you, everyday athlete, can apply to steal some of those secrets.
I mean, we might as well. They're putting them out there.
Exactly. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about training plans. Now, for elite athletes, you know, being an elite athlete is a full-time job.
Yep.
If you are a professional, this is what you do. And so those elite athletes, most of them, right, are not having to balance the same sort of stressors of everyday life as our recreational athletes. Their training is meticulously planned, and so it's really dialing in most often multiple sessions a day, adding in strength and recovery sessions in addition to technique, flexibility, mobility, all of those things. And to do this, they work with coaches. And so every elite performer who is on the world stage is working with coaches, a coach or a series of coaches, to give them that data-driven approach to optimizing their training. And it makes sure that every single session serves a purpose. I think that's a really key call out, right? That no session is wasted. Everything has a purpose in the larger training plan. And often the volume and intensity are incredibly high for elite athletes, much, much higher than what our everyday athlete could take on and endure. And it's really tailored to their body and their goals to achieve their potential.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So for our recreational athletes, you know, a lot of them are training for enjoyment and general fitness. And certainly you can be competitive, you can be serious about it, but whether you're earning your paycheck this way or not is a big differentiating factor. Training tends to be more flexible for our recreational athletes, often fitting around those other life commitments like work and family obligations. And while many follow a structured training program, the intensity is not quite as intense, and the volume is not quite as intense as elite athletes. The focus for our recreational athletes is, as it should be, you know, maintaining health and fitness and having fun rather than peak performance in most cases.
Yeah, and they still can chase those moments, but we're talking about like vast majority if we're looking at kind of polar ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. All right, so in terms of training plans, what can we steal from elite athletes? So the first thing is make and stick with a training plan that gradually increases your pacing, your distance, and your overall volume over time. I think that's one of the key factors of success is that, you know, when elite athletes are sticking or have a plan and a session goes wrong or they have a bad race, they don't throw the whole thing away. Right? There's a big picture vision of what the end goal will be. And then the way to do this would be working with a coach for detailed guidance. And while you could certainly read books and find plans online, whatever it is that you're doing, I would say stick with it for your training cycle to make sure that you're optimizing your potential.
On the coach note as well, because elite athletes a lot of times don't have they have stressors, right? But it is their job. So they probably don't work, you know, traditional hours. They probably have just as much energy expenditure, but it's more targeted to their sport. Many people come to Edge to be coached because they are recreational athletes that want to get better or want to come back from an injury or whatever that looks like, or get back into fitness, but they don't necessarily know how because their life load is so hardy. So from coming from me, I am more impressed by recreational athletes than I am by elite athletes on so many levels. And a lot of times it's our recreational athletes that need a coach to be able to match their week up, help review their data, and really support and develop them into the athletes that they want to become. Because it is it is effing hard to do it on top of being an adult. And don't ever underestimate that you need support too. All right, next up, let's talk about mindset. So elite athletes, we know that they can always just kind of get to another level, right? Their mental toughness is really kind of a hallmark of being an elite athlete. They are determined, they are resilient, they have that champion's mindset. They have a lot of times a lot of confidence and a lot of confidence and belief in their abilities, and this sort of like relentless forward drive and mental fortitude. There's an obstacle, they can overcome it. They use a lot of tools that I feel like as coaches we say a lot of times but doesn't always get done, things like visualization and meditation and goal setting, and really this mental conditioning that becomes a big piece of their training. They even have like more professional help as well, and that is it is a huge advantage, and it's something, because they've done it for years and years, I think stacks really well.
Yeah, the confidence piece, I think, to me is the biggest one in here. And we're not saying, like, I know plenty of elite athletes who have imposter syndrome and also struggle, but what you just said, like, there are sports psychs that they have that help them through that. And I think that confidence piece is what can get them through those tough training sessions and continue to go and stick to the plan, like we just said. That is a little bit different than our recreational athletes.
A fun aside on that one, when we first opened Edge, we had a woman named Daphne Karaganis. You can follow her on Instagram. She's great, and she was here locally as a developing rider. She's very, very gifted, and she started tipping into the pro realm, and I think she had gone to like her coach's training camp, and they had a sports psych there, and I remember talking with her about it when she got back, and she's very, very gifted and very confident. But I think because it hadn't been a full-time job yet, it hadn't really like tipped into that next level. And the sports psych met with her, and they were talking about some tour that was coming up, and she was going to be riding in it. And they said, well, what's your goal? And she said something to the effect of like, I want to ride in it and like get top 5. And the sports psych goes, well, what about winning it? And I think she like paused, and they said something to the effect of like, well, why wouldn't it be you? And she went to reply, and they were like, no, why not you? Like, why not you? And it was the first time that she was like, yeah, somebody's got to win. Why couldn't it be me? And it was this huge shift of like, oh, it could be me, right? And I think from there on out, she just skyrocketed. So from a recreational athlete, where we are from a mindset perspective, we have a generally less intense mindset, right? Because it's not their entire job and being. They're more likely to balance their sport with other enjoyable activities. You might not have like quite the same level of competitive drive. Again, we're not saying that recreational athletes completely don't, but again, your paycheck isn't dependent on it, so it's just going to have to be down a notch. The mental motivation can totally vary. Some people are really driven by personal health goals, and others are, wanting to be exceedingly social. Some have stuff to prove to themselves, but it's going to be very variable. So what can we do learning from the elites in this sense, right? One, use those things that coaches are talking about, like meditation and visualization and journaling. These things don't have to be super lengthy, right? Choose one, do it a minute a day, and see where it takes you. A minute a day. Figure out how to habit stack. If you have not read James Clear's Atomic Habits, please, sweet baby Jesus, pick up a copy and read it, and you will figure out how to just weave it straight into your day without even thinking. They can learn to think critically about what goes well and what needs work. Identify your weaknesses and seek out to destroy them. Just like episode 145, tune into that one, right? There are plenty of nuggets in there. They tend to look at things more objectively. You can too. And last, cultivate more belief in yourself. We see athletes a lot of times hold themselves back, or they're scared about trying and failing. And really part of the process is in the trying and failing. And elite athletes know that. So just going into it, eyes wide open, I could try and fail, but either way I tried is a huge, huge, huge mental game.
Yeah, that concept of failing forward for elite athletes, like they are not afraid to push the pace. And if they don't make all their intervals, at least they did what they did and they build on it from there. And you're right, I know a lot of the athletes that I coach, and probably myself included, hold back at certain times because of our fear of what if. But if you shift it to Daphne's mindset, well, what if we succeed? What if I do? What a great mindset. Next up is nutrition. So dialing in that nutrition piece. For our elite athletes, it is a science. And it is not something that is just what do I have in the house or what do I have a craving for. It's really much more dialed in. And it's dialed in terms of before, during, and after training, just the whole big picture. Really with the idea of optimizing performance and making sure that you're fully fueled for supporting that intense training, and on the other side of that, making sure that you can fully recover. And that's a big part of the strategy as well.
Have you been to the Chula Vista?
No,
facility?
Not Chula Vista.
So they probably have this in Colorado Springs as well, but they had obviously very elite athletes there, right? It's an Olympic training facility. They have plates up everywhere that show you literally if you had a fast day, if you had a long day, if it's a recovery day, if it's a build week, and they show you all the different macros so that, and then it pairs it up to the station that you're walking up to. I followed none of the guidelines. I was there for certification, not training. But man, I took a lot of pictures because it was like the best representation of what the heck to put on your plate. It was very cool.
Yeah, at Colorado Springs, it's similar, and also the food was amazing. I thought the best part of training there was the dining hall is incredible.
I ate like an athlete. I was running every morning, but it was on my own accord.
And that highlights the differences. Really, like even thinking about the plates, right? How often do we, as everyday runners or athletes, really think about that plate and what it's going to do for our future self in terms of recovery or fueling us for our workouts? I think we think about it in some capacity of like, oh, I need to have a snack before I go run, but it's a little more lenient. In addition to that, nutrition piece and dialing in those plates is also hydration. So timing the nutrients and making sure that you are well fueled. And they often work with dietitians to tweak their nutrition and hydration, not just for specific workouts, but also for training phases and for competition schedules as well.
I'm taking it back to Chula Vista. Does Colorado Springs have the urine chart?
Ooh,
this was another really cool one.
Might be a new addition.
So on the back side of all of the doors in the women's stalls, at least, I'm sure they have a different place for the men's, but so that as you're like sitting down going to the bathroom, you see the color chart of where you are in your hydration level and then what you need to do if you have a certain color going on, which is like, it's so smart, it's so simple, and it's right where you need it when you need it, and so it's very top of mind.
Yeah, just to drive that home, another thing for elite athletes is in a lot of cases, if they're training at a facility like this, it's all spelled out for them. You don't have to think about your plate. You don't have to think about your urine. Everything, and it's not overly complicated. That's very simple to be able to.
I'm going to make the commitment right now. I'm making urine charts for Edge.
I love that idea.
And I'm putting them up. I'm going to laminate them.
Fantastic.
I'm going to put them up. Fantastic. But there's no reason that we can't, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, we can steal these tools.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're going to do it. All right, so for our recreational athletes in that terms of nutrition and hydration, we really tend to have a much more relaxed dietary habit. But we should, right? Like, as we've mentioned in the past, my rule of thumb is don't eat like an asshole.
Do you want to talk about your hydration yesterday that I saw you doing?
No, it was bad. Yeah,
I was
leaning a little more recreational than elite.
Definitely leaning recreational. Walked to my car, what was it, 5:45 p.m., 5:40 p.m.?
Yeah.
I see Coach Chris running down Throop Street, which is the back way into Edge, running with a salad, wearing all black in the heat of the day. He then learned that not only did he swing by Sweetgreens, but he ran to Sweetgreens from his house, which is how far?
It was about a 10K.
Okay, so 10K to Sweetgreens, picked up Sweetgreen, came in, no hydration on him, wearing black. You didn't look as sweaty as you could have. I was impressed by that.
It had soaked.
So
it,
did.
yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wow, don't follow it. He does have his salad in hand, but not a lick of hydration to be seen.
No, and it was a bad day, and I will out myself in saying the things that I ate beforehand was 2 cinnamon rolls. That's what I forgot. As I often tease Coach Robyn about Pop-Tarts, it was a bad day. It was a bad day.
So nutrition is less stringent sometimes.
Sometimes it is less stringent, and there's a variety of reasons for that, but I think generally speaking, we advise our recreational everyday athletes to hit it 80% of the time, right? Still leave space for fun social opportunities. We're not total alcohol deniers. If you want to go out and have some drinks, that's fine. It just has to be in moderation. And that's, I think, for us, that's the way that we can sustain continued training, because the truth is, for our elite athletes who are on such a strict nutritional regimen, it becomes really challenging.
And not sustainable.
Not sustainable. If you've ever met somebody like training for bodybuilding competition or a fitness competition, or even who is totally locked in, it can become a lot. And it takes the enjoyment out of something that is enjoyable.
And this is why having the plates at these Olympic training facilities make a hell of a lot of sense, because they are there to train and they need those decisions made for them.
Yes.
They are being cooked for people. Like, it is easy for them to just follow a chart and refuel, but that is just not realistic in day-to-day life.
Yeah, so a lot of recreational athletes also don't pay attention to some of those strategies that our elite athletes are using, like things like electrolytes, which we just recently did an episode on, or carb loading, which we will have a future episode on. I want to get J-Ro in for that one.
Yeah, I love that.
So how can we steal the elite strategies? Well, first of all, I don't recommend running so far with no water and only eating cinnamon rolls.
And carrying a salad.
It was a short salad run, but yes. Really think about how your nutrition and hydration can aid not only in your training sessions, but also in your recovery. So thinking about it in the big picture, and aim for a balanced diet, good hydration, clearer urine color, but you'll see on our charts soon.
You're welcome.
And think of it not just as fuel for your training sessions, but again, that big picture before, during, and after. And one way that we can do that here is we have a J-Row. So use our tools. If it's something that you've been thinking about and you've noticed that your nutrition or hydration strategy or lack of strategy is not doing you any favors right now, an easier way to level up is to get help from someone. And we have options here.
We have nutrition coaching. All right, last one, recovery. As we're sitting here staring out at our recovery lounge, the art and science of rest, right? Elite athletes, they really view this as critical to their training. I always joke that Tank is an elite athlete. He literally recovers like an elite athlete. Tank is all about, once you work out, those are air quotes, you get back to homeostasis as fast as humanly possible. So he will go on a walk and he is down on the floor, recooling, regenerating, and you can't even get him to move his head, just his eyes, right? He's conserving energy. So be Tank. Be Tank when it comes to recovery. Recovery for elite athletes can look like a lot of things. It obviously looks like rest days, but we have some awesome active recovery techniques going on too, like ice baths and massages. Compression therapy is a really great one. We also have advanced modalities like cryotherapy. Big one, sleep. Not a surprise. Remember when Gwen Jorgensen came out with her sleep patterns? Was it Rio?
Oh, no.
Yeah, and she went from sleeping 7 and change to 8 and change or 9 and change, and that was what she attributed to everything leveling up. A lot of elite athletes will actually wear wearable technology to track recovery and metrics and ensure optimal rest, because sleep is our number one recovery tool. We own a recovery studio, and we are not hiding that fact. It is the number one recovery tool. If you can track it, you can optimize it. So then we talk about everyone else, our recreational athletes. We know that you know the importance of recovery, but it's always oh yeah, we know. But methods are usually a little simpler and maybe less intrusive. They will typically compromise on sleep because you all have a lot more going on than elite athletes from a day-to-day life. You just do. You have obligations, you have families, you have jobs. We get it. So sleep is often, myself included, one of those things that gets cut. Sometimes when life gets crazy, you skip rest days, which makes us coaches crazy. I do think it is indicative of them maybe not believing in themselves, that fear of I got to get everything done. But rest days are incredibly helpful for you to adapt. Fitness is only actualized through
the recovery phase.
Right. So if you keep stacking those bricks, but you never give it a second to set, it is literally going to fall over. Oh, I never made that
That is
before.
a great,
Yeah, you got to let that grout. Is it still called grout when it's in between bricks?
Yeah.
Somebody tell me. Well, I don't know why I'm asking you.
I don't know.
Are you in construction?
No.
Yeah, you got to let it set, though, because there's no way for it to actually fuse and heal and get strong other than time. So that is not one of the things that you should necessarily skip.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we do things that are easier, and which is great. Everything counts, right? So stretching, I know our mobility classes are really popular. Foam rolling, occasional massages, all of those recovery practices are usually, we would argue, some of the most important things to do, but they're also some of the first things to drop on a schedule when you're crunched for time, which we know, we get it, real life happens.
Yeah. How many of you have a foam roller at home? Okay, now how many of you have a dusty foam roller at home?
99%.
Yeah, it's definitely the first thing that goes.
Yep. So how are we going to apply the elite strategies, right? What are we going to do? One, take your recovery as seriously as you're taking your training. Schedule it in. I know you do that for your athletes. You literally put it in their training plan. Put it in your training plan. If I need to get something done recovery-wise, I'm kind of psycho about my to-do list. I make one every single morning, if not the night before. I really like to get everything crossed off. I will put that urinalysis chart on my list for tomorrow and it will get done. But if I put on there like bed by 9 because I'm prioritizing sleep, then it happens. If I have a meeting and I want to do it in boots, I'll put the location as the boots and then it just gets tied in. So take it as seriously as you take your training. I am definitely not an elite athlete, but I'm stealing these things. Use the tools you have, right? We have a lot at our fingertips that you maybe just aren't thinking about. We still have things like legs up the wall and compression socks and things that we can really do and sleep, right? Talk about at your fingertips, we have Edge, right? So if you're in Chicago, you don't need to be a member to come in. Members can book appointments, though, to make sure they get their spots. But we have recovery passes, and you can come in. We always accept drop-ins. We're very rarely on a wait, and we love it. Get your tubs and your compression on. Don't forget about sleep. We can't say that one enough. You can also check out episode 103 for cheap and easy recovery. I really loved that episode.
That was a good one.
Lots of nuggets.
Yeah.
And episode 113 on sleep, which we could probably listen to again.
Yeah, that one was sad for us, but there's lots of good nuggets in that one too. All right, and finally, support systems. So for our elite athletes, as we mentioned, they have a team. So no individual athlete is getting to the World Championship or the Olympics on their own. It's really a comprehensive and specialized support system that they have, and that can include experts like coaches. It can also include nutritionists, sports psychologists, medical professionals, and so on. So they have a wide range of folks who, they don't have to be the expert on everything.
Yeah.
They rely on the expertise of other people, and that can really alleviate some of the pressure from them. Like you said, part of it is just being told what to do.
Yep.
Right? So that's part of the reason why working with a coach is really great. This really ensures that every aspect of their performance is optimized and any issues that they're having can be quickly addressed, which is a pretty important thing because just before this we were talking about going to doctors, right? And how long does it take to get diagnosed with something, or if our athlete sprains an ankle, what does it look like to get them in to get an examination and then physical therapy? Our elite athletes have a much easier time with this.
Yeah.
In addition, coaches have a scope to their work. And so, we are not doctors and we are not nutritionists or dietitians unless we are.
Yep.
And some
And
people,
we're not.
Some people do. I do have nutrition certification.
Oh,
so
you are.
I am. But thank
I'm
you.
not.
Maybe I need to update my bio. But coaches are really a great first place to expand that support network because coaches can have that big picture in mind. And while some coaches might not be able to, diagnose an injury, for example, or tell you what to have on your plate. They certainly are the first point to look at the big picture of training and sort of direct you where you need to go.
I have a short story about this one. It's a great example of what you just said. I had an athlete recently, about a year ago, relocate and hasn't found all of their support system in their new city yet, and rolled their ankle pretty badly. Wasn't broken. We did figure that out pretty early on, but knew that they were going to need a fair amount of manual therapy and likely some PT. And I'm like getting pictures and asking questions, but one, I'm not physically there, and two, I'm definitely not a doctor. So just really guiding them, and not going to do the research for you, but like see if there's someone nearby, and can you get in on a Sunday for at least a massage to help get a little bit of inflammation under control. And that was a very fast ramp up to getting a team together. And I think also just very clarifying that you need to have that ready to go.
Yeah, and it's great to do that before you get injured, right?
Yeah.
To have that team in place, but that
is
certainly a catalyst.
Real fast, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the power of the group mind can really help you go beyond what you think that you're capable of. So that's the other thing about group training. Coming into classes, we often see that just even the effort put forth on a Zoom class versus in person it's very different. And in our speed work is another great example. We will push ourselves harder with other people around. So just having that support network around you can help you level up in that way too.
So to recap, elite athletes, what can we take from them? The differences we know between elite and recreational is pretty big. And also how we approach training is very different from many, many facets. So while talent and physical abilities definitely play a role, it's really a lot of times the approach to training and mindset, nutrition, recovery, and the support that we have around us that really sets elite athletes apart. But the cool part is we can do it too. So whether you're aiming for a personal best or just trying to enjoy the journey and tackle fitness in general, adopting some of these elite practices is really going to help you elevate your game and frankly probably have more fun.
Yeah, so let us know what of these training strategies you plan to steal from the elites by tagging us in your photos or dropping a comment on our Instagram or our YouTube. And be sure to subscribe for future tips and rate us wherever you listen so that more people can hear these in the future.
Later!
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Ment. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.